Austin.
Hi.
Welcome in. My name is Gabby. I'm a student counselor with Indiana Wesleyan University, and I'm excited to have you here today. I wanted to start by going over some what's called informed consent.
Mm-hmm.
You've been in a counseling setting before, or is this your first time?
No, I've been in before.
Okay, so you probably know that there's stuff about confidentiality.
Yeah, but a refresher was always nice.
Absolutely.
Refresher. Words.
Yeah. So I will keep everything that you say confidential, unless it has to do with you potentially threatening your own life, threatening the life of someone else.
Okay, causes of concern. Yeah. That makes sense.
Any like abuse, child abuse, elder abuse, dependent adult abuse,
That makes sense.
things like that. Yeah. For the most part, any like notes I take in here as well are going to be confidential unless like subpoenaed by a court, which very rare. You are also welcome to see any of the notes that I take while we're in here. As far as that goes, do you have any questions or concerns about what I may and may not be able to keep secret between us?
No.
Okay, awesome. So then let's start by going over some of the stuff that you talked about on your intake form. Now, before we get into that, I want to just double check that you're doing okay today. You made it into the building all right, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, good. How have the holidays been for you so far?
Oh, it's been holidays for sure. My
Yeah.
waistline is noticing the difference, but
Yeah, everybody's is around this time. It's a good thing, though. It's a good thing to be thankful for. So, a couple of things that you mentioned on here, some behaviors like problem avoidance, procrastination, lack of motivation, concentration difficulties. Can you talk to me a little bit about that? What would that look for you?
Where do you want to start?
What would that look like for you on like a daily basis, kind of thing?
Is
it something you experience? Like, let's start with procrastination. Do you procrastinate like at work every single day?
Not so much work. Pretty solid about not procrastinating there.
Good.
That's typically like not cleaning the cat litter enough or not washing the dishes as soon as I should. Simple everyday things like that. Paying bills sometimes. Just typical normal stuff.
The mundane.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of things. Easy to forget, easy to say, I'll do that later.
Yeah, I'll get to that in a little bit, and then one thing or another, it just doesn't happen.
Is that the same? Let's see, procrastination, problem avoidance. Would you say that's like in the same vein for you, or are there specific problems that you try to avoid?
I think they probably come from a similar spot. Not want to deal with it right now. I suppose I'd say the procrastination deals with, as you said, more like the mundane things, but problem avoidance is more bigger things. So, if there's an issue, like I got a false charge on my card or something like that, something that's a bigger thing that implies like any level of conflict or any kind of confrontation. And I'm like, I'd rather not do that, So I think they're similar, but I suppose I'd split them up that way.
Yeah. Conflict is never really, I haven't met people who enjoy it, honestly. Not a whole lot, anyway.
I'm sure there's some.
Probably. And then you also noted on here lack of motivation. Do you think that all kind of ties in together, or do you think that's also its own kind of separate thing?
It's probably like a Venn diagram kind of thing. Like they overlap, but they're not necessarily the same. That's it. Lack of motivation. That's it. I suppose, like a lack of motivation probably leads me to procrastinate. I'm like, I just don't feel like it.
Yeah. I think lack of motivation, things that don't seem exciting to do, maybe,
Yeah.
and that would also possibly tie into the procrastination. It's obviously not exciting to do the dishes,
No.
but you know you have to do it.
Right.
Can I think? Let's see. Was that concentration difficulties? Yeah. Talk to me about that. Is that at work? Is that at home?
Most things that I'm not like actively interested in at that moment. I don't know. I can sit and like play a video game and be locked into every detail for 5 hours in a row without getting up to go to the bathroom. Not even like a water break.
Wow.
But when it comes to like tasks that I have to do, I'm like, oh, this is boring. Or it. I lost my train of thought.
It's probably we were talking about concentration difficulties, and you seem like it again kind of depends on the situation.
Yeah.
I'm kind of hearing that work is not a problem for you, like at all. You have a very easy time maybe going through your daily motions at work, but then when you get home, I'm curious, do you work 8 hours a day like most people do, or a little bit more?
Yeah. For the most part, 8.
Yeah.
I mean, for a long time it was. I think it's probably because for years I worked 10-hour days, and so 8 hours is a bit more of a recent thing. So I suppose like comparatively 8 hours of work is easier to power through than 10. So that's probably why I feel like I don't have any issues. And I mean, I've been doing this kind of work for almost a decade, so it's just muscle memory.
Really?
Very routine.
Okay. Have you been at the same job for that long?
No, just like a year and a half.
Okay. And how do you like that? I see you're a welder. Okay.
That's where you see I marked down board. I enjoy it, but it can get, at least in this specific job, it can get monotonous pretty quickly. So I suppose I've had other jobs where it was more of this and that, if that makes sense, where I could work on 5 different things in one day, but this place I would sometimes be on the same job for a day and a half, 2 days, so it's just working on kind of the same stuff, just wandering line. I'm like, oh, I'm bored, I can't even focus. You know what I mean? But it can be fun, but it is also, I suppose, just like tedious.
Okay. So yeah, I'm hearing that some of the more mundane, tedious, task kind of oriented behaviors are not really your thing.
No, not really.
That's okay. I'm thinking the concentration difficulties probably have to do with the fact that you're kind of bored. Probably. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah.
Especially,
yeah, I suppose I'd say that, yeah.
You'd suppose, okay. Maybe not quite bored, maybe
unenthused.
Yeah. At the work that you have before you kind of thing.
It's like, oh, this is just a job. Pays the bills. Fun stuff, fun times.
Okay. And you also marked on here smoking/drugs. Did you want to talk about that in here, or is that something you just kind of?
I mean, yeah, I'm not opposed to discussing anything.
Okay. Yeah. So while we're going over, this is just the behavior section of that. Was there anything in particular that is bringing you in?
I suppose I feel like I don't address things enough. It's easy to get bogged down in the day-to-day and not check in with yourself, check in with those around you, and just kind of like process and work through things on a daily basis. maybe that's feeling like I don't have someone to talk to,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of like, oh, I don't know what to do with all this information other than just keep it in my head.
Mm-hmm.
So I think just, people say it's good to talk to someone. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's worked for me in the past, so it certainly can't hurt.
Good. Glad to hear that has worked for you in the past. What is your support system like at home? Do you have family around or friends that you kind of talk to on a regular?
I live alone, but I do have people that I can turn to when I need to.
Good.
But I also have that thing, oh, I don't want to like bother people. So
Mm-hmm.
I do have a support system, but it's often hard isn't the correct word because it's easy. It's as simple as sending a text, but it's challenging to take advantage of that support system without feeling like I'm taking advantage. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Depending on the people that are in your life, I don't think that they would consider it a burden.
Right.
We can talk a little bit more about that. I don't know what your family situation is like, but most of us who have people would much rather have them reach out than just sit alone. I know it's not easy, but
especially in this day and age, like everybody's got stuff going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. And you probably feel like, why would I add to their plate?
Right. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Like if I've got this going on, they probably have their own stuff they're dealing with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like if they ask, I won't hesitate. They ask how I'm doing, and check in. I won't hesitate. But yeah, it is difficult to get that train rolling myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you think that has anything to do with you kind of wanting to avoid problems or conflict?
No, probably not. I don't think so because I do have some good people in my life. I know that I can turn to, but
it's just difficult.
Yeah, it's just difficult. Like I don't want to like bog people down.
Mhm. Mhm. I don't know how you feel about the patriarchy and everything like that, but as a man, I don't personally understand, but I know that the men in my life don't like to admit that they might be going through something or feeling some kind of way. Mm-hmm. Even though they know that they have a great support system, doesn't really make a difference if, you're used to being told one thing kind of situation. So let's talk a little bit about the feelings that you circled in here. I noticed one in particular, depressed. How often are you feeling depressed?
It's not a 24/7 thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a few times a week.
Okay. Does it correlate with anything? Just kind of hits you when it does?
It's for sure going to correlate with. So I've been into a couple different forms of martial arts for a while.
Mm-hmm.
A couple different points in my life, and I know when I go more than a few days without doing that, it definitely wreaks havoc on my mental health.
Really?
Yeah, because that's my physical like community. Mm-hmm. That's where I get like a good. Sorry about that.
Okay.
He has a mind of his own.
Mm. That's your probably most of your support.
Right. Like I can go here and and I have a support system here, but actually like a physical community of people that I can like be around, and I think most people would agree that like their chosen ecosystem like emotionally and mentally recharges them. Mm-hmm. Even I can be pretty introverted, but around like my people, when I get good quality time in, it totally alters my mood. Because most of the people that I actually want to be around share sensibilities with myself, so similar senses of humor that aren't exactly welcome in a lot of circles. So we get to be our unfiltered selves around each other, and that's super helpful. But it's like mental and physical therapy. So even though, especially what I do is like really like physical and demanding, and sometimes the next morning I wake up feeling like I get hit by a truck because it's just so intense. But I feel all the better for it.
Yeah.
Like I'll take a couple bumps and bruises to feel mentally rejuvenated.
Right.
So when I don't get that, it's such a big part of my life, and it has been for, March will be 8 years of that. So when I don't have that in my life, and it's typically like injury related. Like right now, I'm nursing a little something with my ankle. We're getting better, but it's not conducive for healing to still attend.
Right. Something so strenuous on your joints. Yeah.
The risk of re-injury is up there. Excuse me. So, it's for the best that I don't go in the short term, but I notice the lack of attendance. In my ability to be present, and my ability to be understanding and patient.
Oh wow!
It
affects everything.
Yeah, because it allows a lot of. I've relied on it so much. I haven't built up a really good system of. What's the word I'm looking for?
It kind of sounds like, I'm not sure if this is the word.
Like tension release.
I was gonna say, sounds like this is how you're probably processing a lot of things.
Right.
Or maybe instead of mentally processing them, you can physically put your body through this.
Right. Exactly.
And that makes you feel better. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot. That's almost exactly the deal.
How long has it been since you've been to a session?
Let me see. Almost 2 weeks. Yeah, I hurt my ankle Actually, no, it's been like 2.5 weeks.
Okay.
I think 2 to 3 weeks, somewhere in there.
Okay.
It was before Thanksgiving. At least the week before Thanksgiving. I don't remember exactly, but yeah, it's been a little bit.
And you've noticed a little bit more depression around that?
Yeah, I noticed myself being a little bit more tense, a little bit more moody.
Okay. Do you think, because I don't think if you're attending these classes as often as you are saying, that you have a lack of motivation to do that or anything, but do you think not attending the classes has an effect on your motivation to do other things, even if it is like as mundane as doing the dishes?
Yeah, I think it reinforces my sense of discipline a lot, for sure. So it's like, because even half the time I go, maybe I'm like tired that day, I'm kind of not feeling it, but I know I should, so I do, and then I'm always thankful that I did.
Awesome.
So it's, I've even been reading a little bit about studies they've been doing where like you force yourself to do things you don't want to do. It actually like makes like a positive effect physically on your brain. So that makes sense. It's like it's harder to do things I don't want to do because I'm not actively forcing myself to sometimes do things that I don't want to do.
Right.
If that makes sense.
That does. That's very introspective of you. And that makes a lot of sense. Let's talk a little bit, let's see. Some other feelings you had mentioned in here were anxious. Does that kind of coincide with the depression? Is it one or the other for you? Do they kind of play off of each other? How does that look in your life right now?
I think they feed each other, for sure.
Okay. Which one do you think you experience more often? Are you...
Probably the anxiety.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah. And I'm sure that's not any better, missing almost 3 weeks of classes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see.
Because it's such a even because we spar, but because there's no like we don't punch each other, so we can actually like spar. We're not like actually hurting each other. But that, where was I going with that?
That's a physical release. It seems.
Yeah, exactly. It's a physical release of the anxiety.
Kind of actually doing something about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if you're not actually dealing with anxiety in that moment, you're taking your mind off of whatever is making you anxious in that moment.
Oh, right. Yeah, that. But the confidence booster, because even on days where I just get manhandled and I'm in the moment not having a good time, having that thing in my mind of, oh, you know what? I showed up today, and you know I attended, and I got 1% better than I was yesterday.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and then 90-something% of the population didn't even try anything like that today. So I'm doing pretty solid.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big confidence booster and anxiety
like counterbalance.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. So, are you trying to do any like physical activities right now that don't involve your injured ankle, or? I mean, obviously it's kind of difficult. You're used to doing something significantly more physical than that.
Yeah. Exactly.
But it sounds like exercising this will really help you kind of come out of the depression, anxiety, and even your lack of motivation, procrastination. I feel like it sounds like anyway. These are things that are helped along by the training, the physical kind of aspect of that.
Yeah, I try to still go on some walks. And I mean, I'm up and moving around at my job. It's just not as rigorous as training. I've been trying to rehab my ankle at home, and just do some exercise around the house, push-ups, that kind of thing, just to keep myself kind of doing something.
Yeah. Do you notice that has any effect, or is it like just so much different that it doesn't really help you?
It helps some. It's
not nearly.
It's like two different worlds, but yeah, it does help some.
Well, I'm glad that you at least have that, because I think for someone like you, someone who needs this activity, not having any would be really, really detrimental for you, or at least for your mental health.
I can certainly agree.
Yeah. Well, then let's talk a little bit about that's where your community is with these people in the gym. You said that you do feel like you can reach out to them, but what prevents you from reaching out is you feel like you would be a burden, or you feel like they have enough on their plates, they don't need you to add to it.
Yeah.
Have you reached out before and someone said something like that to you? Like we weren't able to help you, or they specifically said so?
I did have one in the past where I was going through a breakup at the time, and he said he would be there for me, and he was, but I think he was and he wasn't, but also I think part of the wasn't is I had that one enthusiastic extension of friendship, and I really latched onto that, and I put my eggs in one basket as opposed to actually utilizing my full support system. And I think I did have so much that I was going through that it was more than was bargained for. So it was a little much, especially with him working 70 hours a week.
Yeah.
At the time. I was a little selfish in that regard, but
it's a lot for anyone to be working, and going through a breakup is certainly something that you should be reaching out to your friends reasons for.
I mean, it didn't help that it was my first time truly living on my own. It was the first time I had a place by myself at the time. So all of that together just was a maelstrom of not good.
Perfect storm.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So you probably only reached out to like one person, is what it kind of seems like you said, right?
It was a couple, but it was primarily one.
Probably has to do with you feeling like you don't want to put that on other people.
I think it was a little bit of that. You're definitely right there. And then it's almost like I lost myself in the relationship, and I really neglected a lot of my friendships. So I hadn't established that. I feel like I didn't have that established relationship with as many people. You know, where I had like this one person I felt like I really trusted. Whereas I think if I had spent more time along the way, like still nurturing those relationships, that maybe I would have felt more secure to branch out, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that you weren't really able to tap into the support system that you may have now.
You live and you learn. I think I've addressed those issues.
Good. So do you think that you'd be willing to reach out to multiple people, multiple friends, if you were going through a hard time?
Yeah, I think if I really need to, for sure.
If you really need to?
Yeah.
Okay. Does that mean you would let it get to a certain point?
Yeah, I'm bad at asking for help. It's usually, I liken it to like a disaster movie where I'm the scientist who wasn't paying attention to the readings until stuff's going really bad. It's like, oh no, we got to do something about this now. So yeah, I am bad about letting it get to that point, I will admit, but I certainly can try to be better about not letting it get there by utilizing that support system before then and trying to recognize some of the warning signs a little bit better.
Would you say, since you have a better kind of skill set in this at this point, would you say that you have better relationships, closer friendships at this point as well?
Yeah, I think I've gotten a lot better at being more of a giver than a taker in my relationships, and actually like showing them that I care and that I check in, so I don't feel. I've gotten better about it, I should say, but I still could use work for that probably.
I heard you start to say so that you don't feel like you're asking too much of them, maybe? If you're not putting in the effort to check in on them, why would you ask them to check in on you?
Exactly.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. Trying to establish that reciprocity and that rapport a little bit better.
Absolutely. And you'd say you're a lot better with that now.
Yeah, I mean, it's better than it was before.
Better than it was before. Well, that's good. That's all you can really strive for, is to just be better than who you were yesterday, right?
It's true.
Yeah. So yeah, that was one of the things that you were saying you kind of wanted to work on, is actually attacking the problems as they present themselves.
Right.
Does that sound?
Yeah, instead of letting them snowball.
Do you think that having stronger support, being there for your friends so they can in turn be there for you, would kind of help that? Or do you think it's more of an internal, like, no, I just need to have a task list?
It's probably a little both.
A little bit of both?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. How often would you say you're talking to your friends, especially right now you're not physically able to go to the classes and talk with them, which is probably really helpful for you in most cases. So since you're not able to do that, are you talking with them often, or are you kind of...
A couple times a week.
Which is similar to if you were in person.
Yeah.
Do you think that in-person or over text interactions are similar, different for you?
I think at this point they're more similar
Okay.
than different.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's never going to be the exact same, but I think I have put time and energy into these friendships to where there's nothing like lost in text.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that you have a good support system. Let's talk about maybe your problem avoidance. And I call it problem avoidance because we talked about things like doing the dishes. And we can start with something as simple as that. If you're not really dealing with a huge problem in life right now, how often would you say that you avoid simple tasks at home?
More than I'd like to admit.
That's okay. Do you have like a checklist of like maybe like you've got your daily things like the dishes? You probably cook for yourself every now and then since you live alone.
Every now and then.
Things like the litter box. Do you have a checklist? Have they ever worked out for you before if you have tried one?
I like a physical checklist. I've tried, but I'm so bad at creating new habits that I might do it one day and then I just don't continue it.
Yeah.
But I do make like a mental checklist throughout the day of like, well, throughout the day as much as I can, when I am home. But yeah, when I see things, be like, oh yeah, I need to do that. I suppose it'd probably be pretty beneficial to actually like write them down. I mean, even if it's just like a note in my phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably better than not doing it at all.
Well, maybe. Because we're about at the 30 minutes as we wrap up, I was asking about that because I wanted to know how you'd feel about setting yourself like a daily task list. And in addition to that, maybe asking some of your friends, how do you get through all this stuff? If you have any other friends who are dealing with like lack of motivation, or maybe all of your friends don't do the dishes and they don't care, but if that's something that you wanted to work on, if you have a friend who'd be willing to kind of keep you accountable in certain things like that.
It's worth a shot.
It's worth a shot. Yeah.
Worth trying.
You definitely don't have to, but I think at least if you'd be willing to, trying to keep a physical list, or like you said, a note on your phone, that might be a little bit helpful for you to actually get things, even small things, done. And I think that once you've mastered taking care of the small things, it'll be easier to start taking care of the bigger things. Does that make sense?
Build some positive momentum.
Exactly. How do you feel about that?
Can't hurt to try.
I'm a big advocate for community support. I think it's really great that you have a community of people who you know care about you, kind of thing. And I think it's really helpful to use that resource since you know it's there. You don't necessarily have to use it for something as small as cleaning your house, but especially right now when you're not able to get in there and see them and work out with them, I think it's important that you keep in touch and make sure that you're keeping in touch, kind of thing. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Okay. If you wouldn't mind, I would love to see if you did a checklist. It can be 3 days next week. 3 days checklist that you did at least 2 things on that list. So I'm sure you have more than 2 things every day that you think about. Oh, I need to get that done.
Like 2 things a day for 3 days.
You think that would be something?
I can probably manage that.
Probably. If not, it's okay. We can come up with something different. But let's start with the small problems, or the small things that we can find a quick solution to. And I think you'll find that habit building will get easier.
You got it. I'll give it a shot.
Sounds great. All right, that was 30 minutes.
All right.